It's not, I guess, necessarily that Kyle has had protection issues like chronically, but there were a couple of instances last week with the fumble and the grounding call. And there's been a couple other plays like that. I guess just how are you counseling him right now through those situations as I guess he continues to grow in the way that he anticipates those pressure situations in reset?
Yeah, the number one most important thing is the football, and that's going to be the way this weekend. It's a huge part of the game, and we got to take care of the football across the board. We got to make great decisions, and know when to cut your losses. Have a plan for when it goes, the way that you expect it to, but have a plan for when it goes, sideways. And I think it's really what you have to do every time you go into a play is, okay, here's what we expect. When it doesn't go that way, I might have to be in a management situation, which is let's not make bad plays any worse. And that's all part of playing the position.
Obviously would have been part of the planning and everything last year for a game like this. And when you're seeing a team like this for the second time, are you building off of concepts and stuff that he would have already maybe been familiar with going into a week like this?
We play so many games and there's so many, just different practices. But I think the good thing is, again, for somebody who's been in the system for a couple of years, they've been through preparation before, they've been through game planning situations. They've seen the games live. I think a lot of our guys understand what this game is going to be, the intensity. But yeah, now that the coordinators have been there for a couple of years, there's a little bit of a familiarity there. But they change year in and year out. Their personnel changes. It changes in the game. So, but it is good to have some guys that aren't doing it for the first time.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you guys look like you got a little bit more creative in the way that you guys use motion and things on Saturday. Is that part of the progression with Kyle and just giving him more and giving this offense a little more with each week?
Yeah, I think every week we want to keep adding more and growing. There's give and take to everything that you do. You want to give the guys a clean plan. You want them, when you move something post-snap, like you said, or pre-snap, like you said, the pictures change. It changes for the guys up front. It changes for the quarterback. There's always a give and take. But then it also changes the picture for the defense as well. So, every week we'll try to add more and more different wrinkles, keep adding to what we think can stress out defenses.
He's your fourth new starter since you got to Ohio State. Is this like on progression with where the other guys were with giving them more? Is it like game 6, game 7 when you start to give them more, or is that different for every quarterback?
That's probably about right. Yeah, I think that it's similar maybe than some of the other guys. I think that he's probably right on pace.
Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, looking back at Saturday, Purdue did a really nice job pressure. Wise blitzed a lot. You saw Kyle sort of throwing off the back foot a lot, maybe not getting the arm strength that you expect to see. Is that coachable? Is that just a kid reacting to the pressure? Or is it a mechanical breakdown somewhere else?
I think there was a little bit of both going on. I think they brought, one more. You saw some zero pressure, and anytime that happens, we'll certainly see some of that this week, where they bring one more than you can block. And when that happens, sometimes you do have to drift away from the extra defender to buy yourself enough time for the receivers to get open. And in that moment, you may take the ball a little bit off the ball to allow the receiver to react. But there were other times where that wasn't the case, where, like you said, there was either a breakdown in protection, which, certainly the line has their part of it, but also it's it's this tight ends, it's the running backs, it's everybody involved. But certainly what we want to do is we want to take a good drop. We want to get our feet in the ground, and all the power from throwing the ball comes from your cleats being in the dirt. So, there were some times probably where we're drifting a little too much.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, how much did you recruit Drew Aller when he was in high school, and just kind of what was that relationship like?
Well, he's an Ohio kid who had a great career. We already had Quinn Ewers committed to us, and then there was a reclassification, and at that point, he was already committed to Penn State. But a lot of respect for him, for his program, and certainly being from the state of Ohio. He's a very good player.
What do you think of the player he is now, and kind of what kind of threats is he going to pose to the defense?
I think he's done a good job in his first year. He's He's had poise. He's a big, strong quarterback who, leads the team well and manages the game well and has a good makeup. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, that touchdown Kyle threw to Cade, where he just kind of ripped it in that tight window there. Kyle seems to be getting more and more confident with his arm and his eyes, just letting the ball rip more and more. How have you seen that growth over these first 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think every week it improves, it gets better. There's certain things that you see for the first time every time you're out there. I think the one thing that's unique about our opponents this year is that almost every defense has been significantly different week in and week out. You saw something last week that we hadn't really prepared for in the last couple of years with very different defense. Notre Dame was different. Maryland was very different. Each week, the fronts are different, the coverages are different. So it's great learning for all of our guys to be able to identify what they're up against, learn from it, and then grow.
Have a quarterback like that who's gaining that confidence and just trusting his arm and his eyes more. What's that conversation like with him as you try to add more to his play?
Yeah, I think you're trying to build the confidence up, and you're trying to challenge everybody, but certainly Kyle to grow in certain areas, and he's responded well to that. I think he's responded well to the challenges. I mean, this challenge that we have this week is going to be a big one. I mean, this is a very good team, very good defense. Certainly well documented that they're the best defense in the country statistically. Have a lot of guys returning off of last year's team, so. He knows we got to have a great week, and that's for everybody on the team. We got to have a great week of preparation, obviously.
Tony Gertman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, how can you tell you're facing a great defense if they haven't faced any top offenses?
Well, you know what they are coming off of last year. They're a very, very good defense, and you can see the turnovers they're creating, and they played against some solid teams. It's not like they haven't played against anybody. They played against some Big Ten teams, and you can just see the one-on-one matchups, and then also, like you said, coming off of last year. I mean, these guys have played before, and some veteran guys on that side of the ball. So I mean, they're a very good defense.
And they've created some turnovers this year, a bunch of interceptions against Illinois. How much do you talk to Kyle about that this week? Is it more than any other week, or the same as it always is?
Just like every week. Yeah. It's just when you're in games like this, as we know, it could come down to one play. So everything is amped up. The consequences are higher, the stakes are higher, and that's the way you want it. We've already been in one of these games this year, but it's just a reminder when you get in these types of games.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Dallin Hayden got his first extended action. What did you see out of him that you liked?
Yeah, I thought when the ball was in his hand, he did some really good things. I thought our O-line opened up some better holes, but Dallin ran hard as well. I thought once he got through the line of scrimmage, he got up to the safeties, and one run in particular, he really lowered his shoulder and ran the safety over, which I think he's number 31 for Purdue's a really good young safety, and he finished that run really well. So that was probably his best run. But you saw his feet move in the hole, and that was great, especially for somebody who hasn't really played this year.
He seems like one of those guys when the lights come on, he always performs, like going back to the Maryland game last year against Purdue. Is there something holding him back in practice? Maybe that he's not doing well?
No, I think, again, that the best thing that Dallin does is when the ball's in his hand. And he does a nice job with that. I mean, there's certainly more to it than that, but we're happy with how he played on Saturday.
Over to the right, Don Taveri, WBNS.
Coach, I don't know what you can get into. How healthy are you guys? Any word on Trey, Mayan, and Mecca?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into all those guys, but hopeful that we'll have all those guys back for Saturday.
The other thing, you know what it's like playing over there, noon kick here. Just what's your message to the fans coming this week?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is, I know I talked to Gene about this, and one of the biggest things that he mentioned to me was getting everybody, in the stadium early. We want to do that. We've done that in the past, just to set the tone. But this is one of those games that, we've got to really create a hostile environment for Penn State, in particular their offense. When we're really loud in the stadium, anytime that their offense has the ball, it makes it very difficult to operate. The communication, the snap count, all of those things. And so the louder we can be, it doesn't matter whether it's third down, red zone, short yardage. If they're operating and they're on the field, the louder we can be, the more hostile that we can be, advantage Buckeyes. So, that's really one of the things this week that I'll be talking about, because this is a big game, but we got them here in the shoe, and let's make it as loud as we possibly can.
Clay Hall, WSYX.
When you're facing a defense like this, they're number one in a couple of categories, number two in another. Are you trying to find, is there a weakness to find, or that's not going to happen? Or when you sit around that table, somebody says, hey, I think we ought to, I've just noticed they don't do this well. I mean, has that moment happened, or that's not going to happen this week?
I think the first thing, anytime you're looking at a game plan, you look at the personnel, and then you look at the scheme, and you try to do the best you can based on the personnel you have, based on the personnel that they have, what gives our guys the best chance to be successful, to move the ball down the field and score touchdowns. There's a lot that comes with that. Certainly there's the schematics of it all. It's also what your team knows, what your team has practiced. There's also things that will come into the game plan that, are specific to your opponent. That's not any different this week than any other week, but there's a lot of hours spent in those meeting rooms going through that to make sure that our players are playing fast. And I think that's important for coaches to give them a clean plan, not to put too much on them. You don't want them thinking too much. You want them playing fast.
Austin Ward, the podcast, Rivals.
Ryan, I know you'd never use an injury for an excuse for a game, because you probably knew you weren't going to have a Mecca on Saturday, but how much do you feel that in a game, considering all the different ways that you can use a Mecca, and maybe some of the creative stuff that we saw, maybe with Xavier specifically, how much of that is just a product of not having a Mecca?
Well, yeah, Mecca, we all know the production that Mecca's had and the impact that he's had on our offense the last couple of years. And anytime you don't have somebody like that, it does affect your offense for sure. We do have great depth. When we lost Chip, we did get, we didn't panic, but it was concerning, because now you've lost three of your starting running backs, and three of your top running backs. And the great news was Dallin was able to step up in a big way. Xavier was able to step up in a big way. I thought Xavier, graded out a champion. He played well in a lot of areas. He's very versatile for us. You saw him doing a lot of things, running the ball, catching, blocking. And, when you have veteran guys like that who can do many things, you do have to get creative. You have to figure out ways to kind of make it work, because ultimately nobody cares. You got to figure out a way to get it done.
What is it about Xavier that allows you to use him in such a variety of ways?
Well, I think the first thing is he became a great special teams player over his career here. So he's a really good football player fundamentally. The second thing is he played running back. He actually played cornerback for a little time here, and he's played receiver. So he's able to do many things. He can be physical and block because he's learned how to play special teams. He can carry the ball. He can run routes. And when you do that and you have that skill set, you're a real weapon.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
With the situation that's going on with Chip Trey in my end right now, I know you guys wanted to redshirt him, but given the way he performed last week, but also what's going on with that room, has that decision changed at all, whether or not you guys redshirt him this year?
I mean, we're still going to do what we think is best to win every game, and it was great to see Dallin run out there and play well in the game. So, when that decision has to be made, we'll make that decision. That decision doesn't have to be made right now, because we still have a little bit more wiggle room, but if it comes down to winning games, then certainly, we'll sit down with Dallin and make sure we're all on the same page. But I know Dallin wants to play, and Dallin wants to do what's best for himself, but also for Ohio State.
For us on the outside, when we see Dallin run, whether it's last year or on Saturday, it seems like he's hitting holes, reading it the right way. But sometimes the way you have talked about him in the past, you bring up stuff like the ball security, maybe the pass pro. Is he still developing those areas, and does he? Is the ball security an issue in practice? Because we haven't necessarily seen it.
No. I think, like you said, I mean, the number one job of a running back is to take care of the ball. I think you can check that box, for Dallin. So that's been great. And so the more opportunities he gets, the better he's going to be. And so we'll see how this week shakes out.
Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, the Devin Brown package there on the goal line, the red zone, just what were your thoughts? Looked like you had it down there 3 times with him and got 2 touchdowns, and then had the ball knocked out the other time, which kind of predictable, I suppose, with a guy in a new situation. Just what were your thoughts about how that all played out? Is it here to stay?
Yeah, I think when you get down into those type of situations, the numbers start to work against you on offense, and when you add the quarterback into it, it can change those numbers. But the great thing about Devin is that he can throw the ball well. You've seen the throw he made to Brandon at the end of the game. So he's not just a running quarterback. However, he is big, strong, and athletic and competitive. And so we, had been messing around a little bit with it, but felt like going into that game with the weather situation, at least the forecast about midweek, we can't get caught in a situation like we had in the past maybe. So that was part of it. And then we added that down in the red zone and felt like it was a good package schematically, and wanted to let Devin go and kind of get his feet wet in that area and flush out any possible mistakes that may happen. I thought he ran hard. I thought he competed. I think he, hopefully learned his lesson there on that one, but it certainly does give us a different wrinkle, and we'll continue to build on that package.
Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Marty, you just mentioned the weather. It's going to be similar potentially this weekend. So how good is it what the guys showed at Purdue as far as short yardage, third down, that you might have to replicate a big time this weekend?
Yeah, I mentioned it during the bye week. You're into October and November in the Big Ten, so it's gonna be at least 3 probably bad weather games, and so we got to handle it. So we'll practice in it this week if it shows up and be ready to go. But we got to be able to run our whole offense. We got to be able to run everything, but we'll always look for ways that we can adapt to the environment, adapt to the situation when appropriate. Yeah.
Another interesting wrinkle you guys showed was a QB sneak, or tush push, whatever everybody wants to call it these days. It seems like an easy play, but how much goes into, one, making that call on that play, and 2, go actually converting it?
Yeah, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to everything that you do, and we try to, we don't just have 1 or 2 plays in those situations. We have a handful of things that we work on, things that we save, things that we try to grow upon, things that we do in a game that we try to have a counter off of it, all those types of things. And so we felt like that was a good moment to get that right there and secure that first down, and we'll keep looking at ways to do everything we can to get that yard or 2 in short yardage.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
And just to follow up on Drew Aller's recruitment, you mentioned at the time Quinn reclassified, and then you looked at Drew and he was already committed to Penn State. Is recruiting a player in that situation kind of like trying to man the drive where you're backed up against your own goal line? I imagine it's difficult to really pull that off.
Yeah. If you're into those type of situations, for sure. We were always respectful of the situation. He was always respectful of the situation. He and his family were great, and it's kind of the way it played out. But a lot of respect for those guys.
Respectful,
just when you're committed somewhere and you have a relationship over time, it's just one of those things where you kind of talk to them and reach out and just see if anything were ever to change, let us know. But at the same time, he was committed to Penn State, and we respected that.
Earlier, you asked about the guys who were hurt. Denzel wasn't in that group. Is the hope for him also to be back?
Yeah.
Dudley Maurice, Kings of Columbus.
Ryan, it seems like Penn State had, 3, 4, 5 guys who can really get after the passer.
Yeah.
What do you think of them, and what do you think of the way your offensive line has protected Kyle so far this year?
Well, I think there's always plays that we can improve on, but this will be, the biggest challenge to date. They're, very twitchy, very quick. They get after the quarterback at a high level. Both ends. Our NFL players for sure. They've been very productive, disruptive, and so our tackles in particular are going to have to do a great job. They are creative about where they align guys and everything. So it's going to be everybody. They do a lot of moving and do a lot of blitzing. So we're going to be on our game, but it's been like that against Penn State for a long time.
And I think Penn State's second in the nation in time of possession. They haven't been very explosive offensively, but they grind it out. Numbers of plays for you guys and number of possessions has been something that's come up this year. Is there anything you have to prepare for in case this is a short possession game, because that's stylistically kind of how they play?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think they've done a really good job this year. They have a good offense, a good offensive line, big and strong. The running backs run hard. But some of those games that they've been in with, with all the turnovers, I think, and maybe the Iowa game, there was 90 to plays to like in the mid 30s, which I've never heard that before. And so they've done an unbelievable job of creating turnovers and, giving their offense the ball. And then, like you said, they've kind of held on to the ball and played complementary football there. So, yeah, we got to look into all those things. Certainly taking care of the football is going to be of utmost importance here. But no, they've done a nice job of that. So, we'll have to have contingency plans in place for that.
Brendan Goulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Coach, actually kind of building off Doug's question, Penn State's almost dead last in the country in number of plays that have gone for 20 or more yards. They just haven't had a lot of explosive plays. I'm curious how hard it is to prepare for things that maybe you haven't seen on film. Like you think you know what a team is capable of because you see their talent, but how hard is it to prepare for something that you haven't actually seen?
Yeah, I guess that's a question that comes up at the beginning of every season, but when you're this far into the year, typically that's not something that gets talked about a whole lot. But to your point, they've done a lot of, they've had a lot of plays in plus territory and, certainly in the red zone. I think maybe they lead the country in most plays in the red zone. So, you may not see as many of those types of plays, but certainly, they have them.
And then, look, you're 6 games into the season. You've got enough of a body of work for your own resume here to look at. How pleased are you with the way your team is progressing from where you were at the beginning of camp to the beginning of the year to where you are now?
Well, it's every week you come up for air and figure out where you want to get better, where you need to get better, and then you kind of identify the things that you need to continue to enhance, but then other things that you need to improve on, and you go into the game and that, like I said, that's the test. Well, we got a big test on Saturday. So it's hard for me to say right now because this is just such a big game and our focus is all in this game. So, again, better idea after Saturday.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago you talked about the art of coaching, when to be patient, learning how to be patient, when to bite your tongue, when to be fiery. It seems like, and players confirmed, that you are a little more fiery this year. I think they call it you're cutting loose. The question is this something, you have the pulse of your team better than anybody, is this something that's intentional that you're doing? Is this just a progression of being comfortable in your skin?
I think this team likes to get coached hard. I do. I think, they do. And this is a great team that can get pushed and, they respond well. And this is a tough game. There's a lot riding on every game, and we know that. And so it's my job to bring it every week, every Saturday, and push as hard as I can. But, for the most part, it's thought out beforehand. I'm not just, flying off the handle, although I guess every once in a while, I guess I would. But, I think the guys like to see the passion. I think they like to see that part of it. And so it's my job to bring that, and I'm going to continue to do that.
You're more comfortable doing it? Or were you ever not comfortable?
Well, I think it kind of depends on your team. Yeah, I think it does. I think you got to do the best you can as a leader to lead your team and what your team needs in that game, in that moment, in that year. And, my feeling is this is what this team has needed up to this point, and we'll keep identifying it. Maybe it'll change tomorrow or whatever, but again, I think that's what you try to figure out as the head coach. Yeah.
Bill Landis, Rivals, podcast.
Right, we saw Kyle run a QB sneak. He kept on that one read play. I'm just wondering if you could also use him in the ways you used Devin last week down in the red zone in the run game, or what difference have you seen between the two that you should have used Devin?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see him get that pull. You can see he's capable, and then the next play gets the sneak, like you said. So, if we can add that part to the game, that certainly helps us a lot. And so we're going to keep challenging Kyle as well to do that.
You guys seem to have a maybe the most balance I've seen between like gap scheme and zone schemes in that game against Purdue. Is that more of this works against Purdue, or did you maybe stumble upon, we think our offensive line of backs handle the stuff a little better?
I think a little bit of both. We looked hard, obviously, coming off the Maryland game to figure out are we doing the right things for our guys. But then also that was a unique front. It was a 5 on the ball front, and we had to do what was best. So a little bit of both there, but when you do well, you have to identify why you did well, and then you got to be accurate with your assumptions.
This season's probably a little bit different than the last two in the way that you approach a game. Obviously, you have a young quarterback and a defense you can rely on to get stops. Now, I guess how has that changed your approach to the way you manage a game, the decisions you make, and why you make them when you make them?
Well, you go into the game trying to figure out. You have different keys on offense, on defense, on special teams that you have to work on to get done. I mean, we identify those, but then you have to look at it holistically of, how are you going to win this game? How do you... And then sometimes you predict it and it kind of goes the way you think, and other times it doesn't. And that's based on what you have in all three phases. So, and then the game changes. You get a feel for how the game's going, and you try to do the best you can to adapt, to come up with these plans for how to put your guys in best position to win the game. And at halftime, I say all the time, you're going to be winning, losing, or tied. And then you kind of figure it out in the fourth quarter. But this is going to be a 4-quarter battle. Always has been, always will be.
I want to go back to Rob's question real quick. Why do you think this is a team that responds well to the way that you've been coaching this season? Case Stover says this is a team that has scars from the past couple of years. Is it that? What do you think it is that is allowing you to coach them this way?
Yeah, I guess we've all been through a lot together. Yeah, so maybe that's it. But I don't know. I don't have my finger on it. Maybe I'll have an idea after the season, but. We're just going to go hard. We know what it takes to win games, so we're going to go attack this thing as hard as we possibly can, and that's what we want. And I know that's what, that's what we all want. That's what the fans want, just to go as hard as we possibly can and swing as hard as we can. And again, that's what we're going to do on Saturday. But it starts with practice today. We got to have a really good and intense practice. We got to be flying around today. I get more worked up for a Tuesday and Wednesday practice. I think I've said that before than sometimes on Saturday because it's so important that we do well. So. We'll keep swinging, and this is a good group of guys. And like you said, we all have scars. They have scars, and hopefully, the more battles that you're in, the more battle ready you are.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
The regular season is halfway over, but it seems like there's still so much we don't know about your team. I don't know if you have do you kind of agree with that there's still a bit of a mystery, just how good you are, and are your weaknesses truly weaknesses, or are they just, normal steps in development? Probably say the same thing about Penn State.
Well, yeah, I was going to say you probably say it about a lot of teams right now across the country, maybe. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a good feel for who we are as a team, but now it's time to go play, again in a matchup game, top 5 matchup. Again, and I think we certainly have learned a little bit about the quarterback. We've learned a little bit about some of the guys who we didn't know early in the season, but our guys, and we have the pen to go write the script of what the season's going to look like, and that's really what matters. So a big part of what you're saying is going to be what happens on Saturday.
Obviously, you had a huge win against.
So, like always, appreciate you guys coming out, cover Penn State football. Appreciate it, really do. Kind of get into last game, some of the things that we usually talk about. We lost the turnover battle. We won explosive play. We won the third down battle. We won the sack battle. We won the drive start battle, and we won the penalty battle. So all those things were positive. We've done a great job all year long with the turnover battle. We got to make sure that we buckle down on that and continue, because that's been a huge part of our identity and a huge part of our success. When you talk about the players of the game, on offense, we had Tyler Warren. On defense, we had Adisa Isaac. And on special teams, obviously, Daquan Hardy. And then the D squad players of the week was Matt Dedish, Tyler Holsworth, Kavion Keys, Colin Dinkins, and then Dakari Nelson on special teams. So awesome for those guys. Our D squad has done a great job all year long of getting us prepared. The practices have been fun. They really have, how our guys are competing, not only the good-on-good periods, but really the D-squad periods as well. Some positives of the game, obviously, we won, but most importantly, we got better. I thought we got better during the week at practice, and I thought we got better on Saturday. I think you guys know Nelly, Dr. Josh Nelson, who works with us, does a great job. That was kind of his message at breakfast. It was either breakfast or pregame meal, I can't remember. he said there's a lot of ways that you can kind of look at it. We talk about our process of getting better each week and each practice, and you can kind of look at Saturday is a culmination of the work you do throughout the week, or you can just look at Saturday as another day to get better, just like the practice days. And I thought that was a really good message for our team, and I thought we did that. I think we're playing really good complementary football, offense, defense, and special teams. I think that's been really important for us. One of the things that Manny was talking about the other day, which I thought was a great point and something we take a lot of pride in, I think we're one of the top teams in the country of not allowing opportunities into the red zone. People aren't getting to the red zone. It's funny because some of our red zone stats aren't good from early in the season. Well, there hadn't been a whole lot of opportunities to improve on them because we're not letting people down there, which I'm totally fine with that. But I also think that's a team stat. That's a team stat that our defense is getting a ton of 3 and outs, and our offense is either scoring or able to get a couple first downs before we punt people deep and make them drive the whole field. So, as a head coach, I'm always kind of looking at what are the team stats. Just like I remember coming up in the profession, a lot of people used to talk about time of possession being an important stat. Well, I think Saturday is a perfect example of that. If you get turnovers and return punts for touchdowns, your time of possession's not going to be very good. Your defense can go right back on the field when you return 2 punts for touchdowns. So that's where I think a lot of people have gotten away from that stat. Some other things, obviously we were explosive on special teams. Daquan Hardy's 2 punt returns, that was a school record and tied a season record, which is awesome. I thought we played very physical on both fronts. We talked about all week last week, we talked about their identity being the most explosive offense that we had seen this year. We took that identity away from them. Whenever you're able to do that to a team, you got a chance. You really do. And then we played 76 players in the game, which continues to be a trend this year. And it's something I think has been really helpful for us. Areas for improvement, we got to start fast on offense. Our 2s and 3s, when they get opportunities to go in the game, got to play at a higher level. Ball security and then perimeter blocking. Getting into Ohio State specifically, Ryan Day, obviously a ton of respect for Ryan and Ohio State as a whole. When you look at kind of who they are, offensively, Brian Hartline, one of the most respected wide receiver coaches in the country and recruiter, this year has become the offensive coordinator. Obviously, I think Ryan's still heavily involved in what they're doing, but they're continuing to do a really good job. They're still a spread offense. They will go tempo, as well, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's all they do. A lot of times they're trying to get a look at the defense. You talk about personnel. Obviously, it starts with Marvin Harrison. We're very familiar with him. Everybody in the country is very familiar with him. Tremendous, tremendous player. Travion Henderson, the running back. Cade Stover is probably the guy that I don't think is getting enough attention and enough love. He's been a very productive player for him, has elite ball skills. Emeka Ibuku, another guy that we got a ton of respect for, and then Mylan Williams, the running back. Some guys we left out based on we're not sure whether they're going to play or not, but a ton of guys that we got respect for. Defensively, Jim Knowles, who again we're very familiar with and has done a really nice job last year. Did a nice job, and then obviously this year is taking it to a whole nother level. They're a 4-2-5 scheme. You're seeing a little bit more of the 3 safety look this year that they ran that he ran when he was at Oklahoma State. I think they're doing a little bit less than maybe they did the year before, but what they do really well, and obviously I think that is equated to them doing a really good job of limiting explosive plays. A guy that I got like a coach crush on, is number 35, Tommy Eichenberg, is just a really good football player. He's fun to watch. Physically, he can make the plays. He's obviously the quarterback of the defense. Everything kind of goes through him. You pick up a lot of stuff off tape watching him, as well as TV copies. Just a really smart, instinctive, athletic linebacker who we have a ton of respect for. Number 8, their safety, Lathan Ransom, another guy we got a ton of respect for. Their defensive end who had a career game against us last year, JT. I want to make sure I say this right. Tui Maulo. I tried my best. JT, all due respect there. I did work on it. A ton of respect for you and how you played. And obviously, he had a career game against us last year. And then cornerback number 10, Denzel Burke. So those are the guys that kind of stand out to us. And then special teams, Parker Fleming with Xavier Johnson as the kickoff return guy and Jaden Fielding as their kicker. So tremendous challenge, also tremendous opportunity, and we're looking forward to going to Columbus and play this game. Open it up to questions.
Let's go to Rich Garcella and then Donnie Collins. You're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
How do you always get to go first? Is there some deal you have with Kincaid, or are you the first one on the call?
I'm an old man.
Got it.
Yeah. You said Marvin Harrison is a tremendous player. You've coached wide receivers. What makes him such a tremendous player?
Well, I think number one, the thing that jumps out to me is his body control and ball skills. He's got the ability to contort his body into positions and catch the ball effortlessly. I think that's the first thing. The other thing, he's just so smooth and fluid. Guy that you guys are familiar with that I think was smooth and fluid, similar to him, is Jahan. The difference is this guy's doing it at 6'3", 6'4". It's interesting. You watch him on tape, and he looks like he's got good size, but when you see him in person, he's a big dude. And I think it's his consistency. He just has consistently, made plays. Obviously, he makes the spectacular plays, but he makes the routine plays as well. So he's obviously somebody that we got to be aware of at all times, and we got a ton of respect for him and how they use him.
Let's go to Donnie Collins and then Johnny McGonigal. You're on deck.
How are we doing, James?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Drew going home, kind of in a way, for this game back to Ohio. Do you have to have any kind of conversations about him with him? First big game first really big game on the road going back home, or is he one of those guys that you don't worry too much about mentality-wise with that?
Well, I wasn't going to talk to him, but this is my third interview today, and everybody obviously is talking to him like that, so I am going to talk to him. We don't really do things like that, but I am going to have a conversation with him because I can't control the things that are outside of our building. But yeah, I want Drew to do the same thing he's done all year long. I want him to prepare the same way. I want him to practice the same way. I don't think he's a big social media guy, so tune all that stuff out and get better this week through his preparation and his performance, which is really no different than any other week.
Let's go to Johnny McGonigal and then Ben Jones. You're on deck.
James, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord, a guy that you guys recruited out of St. Joe's Prep. What have you seen from him on film so far this season?
Yeah, obviously a big arm. He's a good-sized guy. He's been in their system for a while, so he understands their system. He's surrounded with a ton of talent, wide receivers, tight ends. I think I told you guys I love their tight end. He's been extremely productive. And And then obviously they got running backs. So, they do a really good job of, I think they're approaching it a little bit like we've approached it with Drew with a first-year starting quarterback. And he's doing what he needs to do for them to be successful offensively and win games. If you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, really good, really good. So I'm not surprised. Obviously, his high school coach is on our staff. We recruited him. We know a lot about him. We had a ton of respect for him out of high school and continue to, and think he's going to be, a challenge for us on Saturday as well.
Let's go to Ben Jones and then Mark Wogenrich. You're on deck.
Hey, James. How's it going?
Hey, Ben.
I go away for 1 week, and you guys get into all sorts of drama and things. I need to stay around longer, but
I'm avoiding it and keeping my answers as short and as measured as possible.
All right. Well, I was going to ask you about scheduling and long balls, but in any case,
too soon.
You're a guy that does things intentionally, and obviously we've talked about explosive plays ad nauseum at this point. But even without them, even without maybe some of the personnel things that you want health-wise, getting Trey back is obviously healthy. That how you've approached offense this year has been so intentional, and I would say different to a certain extent than how you've done it the last 9 years. That you didn't need to reinvent the wheel to beat the teams that you've beaten, but there's something to be said for how do you approach the big two if you get to those games and they mean what they mean. How do you balance what has worked for you against those teams and not reinventing the wheel, but going, let's know that we want to play this way going into that game and getting good at it?
Yeah. I think what you have to be careful of is you have to understand and figure out what the identity of your team is and embrace that identity no matter what the outside world is saying. You have to be comfortable in your own skin and own who you are and how you have to play. That doesn't mean that you're not looking to improve in certain areas, but I think the Iowa game is a really good example. We went in at halftime and said, "Look, let's not change who we are." And those runs in the first half that were going for 3 to 4 yards started to go for 8 to 10 yards. So I think for me, staying true to our identity and what has gotten us here, while still saying, okay, these are some areas where we have to improve. Whether that's on offense, whether that's on defense, whether that's on special teams. Again, I think I've said this to you guys before, studying the analytics are important, so you're aware of what those things say. But a lot of times those analytics and those trends are there for a reason, and it means you're good at something. And I think one of the big mistakes that you can make is get to certain games that some people say are this or that, and you try to be something that you haven't been in the previous 6 weeks.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich and then Frank Bodani. You're on deck.
Hi, James.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
You mentioned before that you had no recruiting drama with Drew and his family after he committed. Why was that? How were you able to avoid that?
So a couple things. I think, first of all, I think it's how we do things. And I guess what I'm saying by that is we never pressure a kid to commit. Never have. I don't believe in that. Actually, when kids call to commit to us, we usually try to talk them out of it, because I would rather you not commit than commit and change your mind down the road. That's why when it happens, it bothers me, because we were as thorough as we could be with the kid, with the parents, with the high school coach, with the trainers, with everybody. Is everybody on the same page? Or let's not do that. commitment for us and for them is a strong word. So I think we're very upfront and transparent about that on the front end. But I think the other thing is we typically recruit kids and families that come from, similar background where that's important to them as well. And, for Drew, I think part of it was, I think a lot of people forget he was not this like high profile guy in the beginning. Even when we offered him and started recruiting him, like we thought he was really good and had a ton of potential, but he wasn't really viewed that way on a national scale yet. And he kind of earned it like old school, blue collar, Penn State way, where he just kind of kept getting better. And then went from a 3-star to a 4-star, and then from a 4-star to, arguably, depending on which service you follow, the number 1 recruit in the country. And then some of those people that maybe hadn't offered him before started to offer him. But again, because of, I think, Drew and how he's wired, and mom and dad and how they're wired and how they raised them, and then how thorough we were and how thorough they were, it didn't change. I remember them even calling us, say, hey, we just want you to know this coach called us. And like, we don't know how to like do it because we don't want to be rude, but we don't really want to talk to them. And I don't want you to hear that we're talking to these people because we're not. But like, they were just super transparent. And we did the same thing. I think if I remember correctly, it was during COVID. So it wasn't even like this sexy recruiting process. Like, I think they came up and drove around campus by themselves with no tour or nothing. So I think it's just a combination of how we do things. Like, we don't offer playing time. We don't do a lot of things that I don't think are realistic in the recruiting process. We try to treat people, and I try to treat people the way I would want if my son was being recruited, how that would go. And I think some people are really drawn to that, and some people aren't. So we're not for everybody, We're not going to just tell you everything you want to hear. And to be honest with you, I don't want the same in return. What do you like? What don't you like? Let's talk through this. So for the most part, we don't have a whole lot of drama, and that was the same with Drew and his family.
We'll go to Frank Bodani and then Corey Geiger.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Hey, Frank.
Hi. Drew, has he, especially even the last few weeks, has he improved in anything particular that maybe people might miss from the outside just looking at the games? Anything specific that you could point to?
Yeah, I think, I was just about to answer this, and I don't want it to come off the wrong way. Again, I'm being measured because I don't want this to sound like I'm being a smart aleck. But that's probably why I got so uncomfortable last week. Is you spend your whole career trying to get quarterbacks to take checkdowns. Like, every quarterback wants to throw the corner route or the go route or the post. I mean, who's throwing checkdowns in their backyard? Right? So that's why I got so uncomfortable and upset last week, because it was just so foreign. So here we got a young kid who's starting for the first time. And we can call those plays, and he'll take the check down. And to me, he's doing a really good job of keeping the main thing, which is protecting the football, trying to create explosive plays when they're there, but not forcing them, managing the game. And when you say manage the game, sometimes people look at that as not a compliment. The quarterback on every play, whether it's a run game, whether it's RPO, whether it's traditional pass, there's a lot on that guy's plate to make sure that we're not running dead plays. So he's being graded mentally as well as physically on every single play. And he's done a really good job. He's getting more and more comfortable with that every single week. I think he's refining his process of how he watches film, how he studies the game plan. So I'm very pleased with him, and I want Drew to understand this, and I want our team to understand this. And that's what I addressed with them on Sunday. That's what we have to do this week. If our process is what we say our process is, we just have to take the next step this week and get better again this week. Not do anything more than that. Drew doesn't need to be anything more than what he's been the previous weeks. He just needs to continue to refine his process. So I think he's just been steady. And to me, when you're steady and you're making small gains daily with your mental approach and your emotional approach and your physical approach to the game, you get better, and you'll like where you'll be at the end of the season. And that's what he's doing, and not listening to all the other stuff. So I hope I answered your question. It's hard because my nature is not to be measured, but then I come in here wanting to be measured because of all the other stuff.
It's good. Last question from Zoom, Corey Geiger.
Hi, James.
Hey, Corey.
I want to ask you about something that also came up a lot in 2016. This team has been sensational in the second half of games all season. The first half, you've had some slower starts. What do you attribute that to this year? And do you have more focus on being sharper earlier in games?
I think I had the same answer in 2016, but with a different commissioner. Commissioner Petiti came and saw me before the season. He said, look, I want drama. So, wait till the second half, get everybody watching the game to make it exciting. I think it's a similar answer with a different commissioner I gave in 2016. I think sometimes when you have a young team, you got to be able to make adjustments in between series, but sometimes it takes getting in the locker room and settling them down and saying this is what's going on. But the reality is, we got to find ways to do it faster, and we got to be able to start out fast in practices and in games and play at a high level. But again, I think at the end of the day, I do think we're playing really good complementary football, and that's a term that's thrown around a lot, but I think we're probably more complementary and more balanced than we've been in the past. And I think the players and the coaches have done a good job of embracing that. One of the things I've talked to the coordinators, they get up on Sunday and, I talk to the team, and then offense, defense, special team coordinators get up and they kind of summarize the game as well. And we do it at that as a team. Some places don't. You go into your separate rooms. But I think it's always important for our defensive players to hear what Mike is telling our offense because they're learning football. And I think it's good for our offense to hear from Manny because they're learning football. And obviously, as you can imagine, what the offense is teaching in 2 minutes, usually the defense is teaching the opposite, but maybe a different way of looking at it. So, one of the things that I think has been really good is a lot of times we'll talk about an offensive stat, but it's really not an offensive stat, it's a team stat. And the offense, I think we may be leading the conference in points or something right now. Is that right? Well, that's not an offensive stat. Our defense is putting our offense in a position to have short fields. That's a team stat. Just like I talked about on defense and red zone opportunities against our defense. That's a defensive stat, but really the way we're playing, it's truly a team stat. And I think one of the things that's been really good is Manny to get up and address the defense, but talk to the offense about what the offense is doing to put the defense in the best position to be successful. And Mike doing that with the offense and then to the defense. I think that's been really good, and then Stacy as well. I don't remember what your original question is, but I hope I answered it at this point. Did I? Yeah, okay.
please raise your hand and we'll take a mic to you. We'll start with Mark.
Hey, James. Thanks for your time today.
You as well.
What was it that you saw in Drew and your staff before everybody else did? You had mentioned that it took a while for him to kind of go up in the ratings. And was there somebody who was kind of pounding the table for him initially in the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think, Mike got here, and obviously I think at that point we already had Bo committed, if I remember correctly. And Mike really liked Bo, but we felt like we needed to get 2 quarterbacks in that class, and that's another thing we're pretty upfront about, with people. And, obviously not only is he scouring the country at Penn State, but he had already done that, obviously at his previous institution. And then I think, let's be honest, on top of it, he's from Ohio. And if you're from Ohio and you got buddies and friends calling you about guys, it's more natural to kind of find out about guys and be aware of guys that are from your area just because of the connections and the network you have. So I think that kind of got it started, and we liked his film. His transformation, he's got a quarterback coach, Brad Mendler. I've never seen a transformation like it. And to be honest with you, I didn't even really believe in it. I've always been a believer that you can really improve quarterbacks 90% of the time through their footwork and their timing and their anticipation and their pre-snap understanding of defense. That's when the game starts to slow down. That's where you really can help quarterbacks, especially in the college level, because we just don't get that much time to just do straight Indy with guys. But Brad's ability with Drew's commitment and work ethic, his transformation is crazy. And that just continued. He just kept getting better. His high school ran a wide open spread offense, which I think also helped him kind of get a really good feeling of depth and space and how to make people defend 53 1/3. And he's got the arm to do that. Sometimes you got quarterbacks that are sequential thinkers, and sometimes they're spatial thinkers, almost like a point guard. And the good ones can do both, and he's got the ability to do both. But I think it's like most things, right? It's not one thing. It's Drew's work ethic and drive to be good. He's got some obviously physical gifts in terms of his body type and his arm strength. And then he's been surrounded with really good coaches. His high school coach at Medina High School, as well as the trainer, Brad Mendler, who I already mentioned. But then also coming to a place like Penn State that's going to run a system that is pro style, and it's got some spread elements, but we have enough flexibility within the system to take advantage of the things that we think he can do well. So I think it's a combination of things. And again, I think like always, it goes back to how you were raised at home. And I think mom and dad have done a really good job with him. He's just a very steady level. We talk about humble and hungry, and I think he's that.
In the middle, Mike.
Good afternoon. Appreciate everybody being here. Certainly it's a good weekend, and want to congratulate Coach Baluter and the women's basketball team. Sounds like it was just a great event out there, the crossover at Kennick, and what a fantastic concept. I don't know whose idea. I think it might have been Lisa's actually, but just a great concept. Could see from the windows we were up here getting our stuff cleaned up, and just a lot of activity outside there. So it was neat to see that, and sounds like it just went really well. So great experience for everybody involved, certainly, and the Children's Hospital benefits from it, so it's even a bigger bonus there. So just a really nice activity on Sunday, and certainly a good weekend for us. Happy about the victory. It was hard fought and made the ride home a lot easier on Saturday night. So just really proud of our football team on that regard. I want to congratulate Torrey Taylor, second straight week Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week, and obviously he's having a great senior year. He was a huge difference in the game the other night, big impact on the game, and has just done a great job all season long, and also does a great job holding for Drew on the field goals, and that those two things really played a big factor in the outcome of the game the other day. So just again, happy about the performance. I said the other night, the team was certainly determined. They fought, competed hard out there. Our staff had a great plan and then adjusted as the game went on. A couple of circumstances there. So just all in all, a good outing for us. Typical Big Ten game, just a hard-fought ball game, physical, highly contested, all three phases. And, I think that's certainly the message as we move forward now, playing another rivalry game. Big Ten team who is also big, physical, and does a great job. So got our work cut out again. It's really the same messaging as it was a week ago for us. Moving on to the game, captains are the same four guys. Got Joe Evans and Jay Higgins defensively. And on offense, Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara are the guys. So they'll continue to be our captains. On a sad note, unfortunately, Eric Hall looks like his season's over. We're worried about that on Saturday, and the test confirmed that. So he's going to miss the rest of the year. It's just really unfortunate. He's done a great job. Newcomer to the team, just a great addition. Such a positive guy, hardworking, great personality, and just really loves the game, loves everything about the game, not just the game itself. And I hate to lose anybody, and certainly feel badly for Eric in that regard. He was certainly adding a lot for our football team, and it's a tough deal. So we'll all support him in his recovery, his road back, and certainly hope all that goes well. Turning the page to Minnesota, as I alluded to, it's just it's a real challenge for us. A really good football team, and traditionally our games have been really hard fought. Coach Fleck's done a great job building a very successful, stable program. They certainly have an identity, and good teams do. So, that's really what you're looking at when you look across the field. They continue to be a big physical group offensively. Names change, but the pattern stays pretty similar. They run the ball extremely well. Ran the ball really well against us last year, as good as anybody has in a long time. So that's certainly something we're going to have to be focused on. Our conference, a lot of good defensive teams in our conference, and last several years Minnesota's added to that. They've been extremely tough to move the ball against and score against, so do a good job there, and they're good on special teams on top of that, like you'd expect. So that's what they look like. They're coming off a bye. I'm sure they'll be well prepared, well rested. So long story short, just another tough challenge. It'd be great to be in Kinnick, certainly, but we're going to have to do our work on that one. So last 2 points are just the kid captain. I know it's a border rivalry, and I guess we're doing our best to reach across a little bit. Bentley Erickson's our kid captain, the 12-year-old from Brainerd, Minnesota, actually. But I think when it comes to the kids' hospital, there really is no boundaries on that. Everybody's really supportive, and his story, Bentley's story, is kind of interesting. He was born at 31 weeks, was moved down to the Stead Hospital here 5 days into his life, and in his lifetime has experienced 20 surgeries. And now, as I understand, it's a really healthy, vibrant 12-year-old Xbox expert, as I've been told. And sounds like he and George Kittle have a little, all due respect, Brian, but he and George Kittle got a little something going right now, too. So I think George has a pretty good fan club, and it's growing weekly. So it'd be great to have Bentley here with his family, and just look forward to having them in Kinnick, certainly. And then last but not least, just again, want to welcome Brian and congratulate him. He and his wife Abby are here, and their 2 children, and his family will be coming into town here at the end of the week. So I know it's just a really special occasion. And I just, the ANF relationship has been absolutely fantastic for us now, coming up on 30 years, I guess. Just, great relationship that way. Coach Fry's idea in the onset. But, just talking about Brian a little bit, he was just such a great addition to our program when he decided to come here. I remember in the recruitment, we kind of took a shot and told him we'd be glad to have him as a tight end, glad to have him as a defensive player. But I remember having a conversation really with him, just that, really thought his future might be in the offensive line. I don't know if that's smart or not, because most kids run like hell when you say something like that. And he kind of gravitated towards that, so I don't know if that made the difference in recruiting. But, fortunately he came here, had success right off the bat. We didn't play him, start him in our first game. We were in Soldier Field, actually, back in his hometown. Didn't play him, did play him, didn't start him. We were going to play him the next week, and he hurt his shoulder. And the one thing I always remember about him in his first year, he was out a couple of weeks, but when he came back, he picked up a stunt in the Tuesday practice. I can tell you exactly where I was standing. I just remember it so vividly. And he made the pickup. And it impressed me so much for a guy who's not only has been out for 3 weeks, but as a first-year player. And it just taught me, like, this guy was wired in. He was paying attention, even though he wasn't out there practicing. Like, this guy, either that or he's really lucky. Well, history proved that, he was paying attention because that's just how he operated. Had good physical skills, but really had the mindset. It's hard for a first-year guy to come in here and play in this conference and play well, and he did it right off the bat and had a great career with us, and obviously went on and had a great pro career with Green Bay and finished up down with the Chargers. But the other thing I would just add to it, if you look at some of the guys that Ted Thompson picked up there in Green Bay during his tenure up there, you think about Aaron Campman, Matt Bowen. More recently, you take a guy like Mike Daniels or Micah Hyde, and then Brian was in between there. And it's kind of like Bill Pulliam with the Colts. Certain teams just seem to be wired into our guys and really had a good feel for him. And Brian is a good example of that. Just like he played for us as a freshman and a rookie. His rookie year ends up getting a Super Bowl ring. Started, I think, 10 games. I don't know if my math is right on it. 10 games maybe your rookie year. Got right tackle in the huddle with Aaron Rodgers. So, and a big part of the reason they were world champions. So, had an outstanding career here, even more illustrious career as an NFL player, and most importantly, just an outstanding person. And when you look at that wall and the recipients that have gone into the Farm Bureau Hall of Fame, it's really impressive. So Brian certainly belongs there, so congratulations, Brian, you and your family. Just say that real quickly, and I'll throw it up for questions.
Black had a sling, I think, after the game. Can we get an update on his stats? And then Aston Ostrenga, Jazz Patterson, kind of where are they at right now in their recovery?
So Patterson, I think, is going to be okay. He's practicing. Looks like he's okay. So Jazz hopefully will join us. Eddie practiced today, partial practice. So optimistic, but we'll have to see how the week goes. Why, we'll wait and see. But we'll see.
With Eric, with the ACL tear, I'm assuming that's needs surgery. What is kind of his recovery timeline for that?
It takes a while, whatever, 6, 8, 10 months, somewhere. So it's significant. It's unfortunate. Yeah.
Are you guys holding out hope that maybe Lachey comes back at some point, maybe bowl game or something like that?
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday about being back after the bye, jokingly. Okay, for the record, jokingly, and he just smiled. But we'll see. We'll see. You can't count on it. It's just hard to predict. The window's open for that, maybe, sometime in December, but. It's certainly not, for sure.
What about Noah Shannon's situation now? Any additional feedback from?
Well, he looks good in pads, and he practices well. That hasn't changed. He's got fresh legs too, I guess. But I think we're just waiting on the NCAA. So hopefully they'll do the right thing. And how soon that's going to be? If it's 1 call, 2 calls, I don't know. So that's okay. I mean, time's ticking. He's getting older. All of us are getting older, and hopefully it's sooner than later they make a decision. I say it jokingly. It's really not very funny. In fact, it's not funny at all. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't have any firm data on what's going to happen or when.
Realistically, is Wrigley Field game maybe the ballpark? I mean, unless they call you tomorrow.
Yeah, if they called tomorrow, it'd be great. To me, they probably could have done it in June. That's my looking at this whole thing. But that's discussion for a different day too. So, if they wanted to call tomorrow, it'd be outstanding. We'll have them out there Saturday if they do. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen.
If Black can't go, you obviously have Logan Lee and Aaron Graves at D tackle. What are your next options? We've seen Pittman a little.
Yep. That's the next guy.
Would you move anyone inside potentially, or
be? Deontay Craig's played there in the past, but we're nicked up a little bit. I mean, we've played 7 games and got a lot of guys that are playing with soreness and pain. That's part of the game, unfortunately. Just like guys getting hurt, and that's I don't say it in a callous way. It's just the reality of what we do, and it's so we'll figure it out. We'll just get 60 more minutes to play here, and then we'll regroup next week.
You are banged up. I mean, I know every team is. I understand that, but you got 1 game before the bye, so you're coming off an emotional win. So what's kind of the message to the team here to try to kind of limp to the finish line, so to speak?
Well, a while back I just talked to the guys about an 8-week season, and it's really what it is. And I don't know about anybody else, but I wasn't smart enough to know 8 weeks ago what it was going to look like today, or 7 weeks ago, I guess. So you just take it a week at a time. You try to take it a day at a time and assess where you're at. Yeah, and it's all about survival, really. I mean, that's what Saturday was about, and that's what this week will be about. Very similar type game, and it is. Yeah, we are coming off an emotional win, but I mean, every week's like they're pretty much the same story each and every week. So that's part of the challenge that's built in. Can you get up and get back working on Sunday and transition into the next game the next week? You're always going to have challenges. We'll always have guys that are achy or painful or a little tired, all that kind of stuff, and we just try to be as proactive as we can about recovery, rest, all those things that we all know we're supposed to do. Sometimes we don't do it, especially if you're in college. Just try to get every edge you can so you can be at your best on Saturday. But that's what we're trying to do right now. And that next week is next week. It's a late bye, so we'll handle it appropriately and what have you. But really our focus has been on finishing this 8-week block, and that's really where it is right now.
What did you think of the physicality of the run game, the offensive line against Wisconsin, and sort of how they've grown this season?
Yeah, I think I've been saying that. I think I've seen improvement. We've seen improvement. All of us have the last 4 or 5 weeks, I guess, and 3 weeks maybe, I guess, whenever we started the second 4-game deal. And it shows up in different ways, but I think we're getting a little bit more mature now. We're operating a little bit better together and having a better feel. And certainly the run game was huge for us the other night, and that will be a better football team if we can run the ball successfully. It's it's never easy, but it certainly helps you. And hopefully guys are gaining confidence when good things do happen. They should feel a little bit more confident. The backs, especially LeSean, really ran the ball well, and we created some room for him, so he did something with it. And even the long run, that wasn't a clean play. Like there was some bobbing and weaving going on there, but that's the way the run game is. And you got to make something happen. If you're a back, there's typically going to be somebody you're going to have to, put a move on or break a tackle or whatever. And that's the way the nature of the game. But it's encouraging.
What's the status of Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall?
Hall's not going to make it this week for sure. Deshaun will see. Yeah, it's the same thing, day by day.
Backups Brendan Diaz-Fernandez and Devin Hilson. What's your level of confidence in them and just in the potential of them stepping in and playing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, level of confidence. I'd be more confident if they'd started 20 games in their careers, like everybody. I'm flashing back right now to, I think we started 2 freshman corners, whatever year it was, up in Minneapolis. They had the 2 good receivers. Didn't sleep so. Riley Moss was one of them. One of great, Brent's too, I think, right, Julius, I believe. So, I didn't sleep so well that Friday night, but those guys did great, and we won the game. That's it's an opportunity for the guys that haven't played a lot. We talk to them about that all the time, and both Brendan and Devin are doing good jobs on special teams. That's reassuring to see guys out doing things, contributing to the team, doing well. And Devin had a penalty the other night. That to me was inexperience. You get mad a little bit, but because we couldn't afford an inch the other night. But at the same time, I've been watching him. All of us have been watching him improve and progress as a young guy who's aggressive, and so he's really improved as a football player. So penalty, it's a learning experience the other night, but I think he made some really good plays too for us, and so hopefully at some point that's going to transition in the defensive play. It's kind of been the history of guys around here, but I'd be fine if our starters got to play the whole game. That'd be okay with me.
With the tight end injuries adding up, what have you seen from Steven Stilianos this last month?
Same thing. I mean, I think I mentioned, I thought he was one of our most improved guys last spring, and it's the same topic. Technically we were playing with 4, 5, and 6 at tight end the other night, 3 guys that were out there. So, again, you probably wouldn't sleep well going into the game knowing that was the case, but those guys all played. He did a good job. Johnny did a nice job, and Ort's in the Army now. So, as of last Saturday, he's in there playing, and thought he did a good job for a first time out there. So, but it's because they practice well. And again, talking about Steve, we said that in the spring. I thought he's probably one of our more improved guys on the team. Last year was a transition year for him, and but in the spring you could see him operating. Like this is a guy who can help us play and help us be successful, and he's going to be called upon to do more now as we move forward.
That, has there been any thought to move a March back out more to tight end, or do you like him too much fullback?
Yeah, no, he's got that flexibility. He certainly, we're out of guys, so he'll definitely get work there. So he's probably one of the 4 guys getting work, and he's a smart guy, so he can do both. And but they're not like the three guys that weren't playing or were playing. I guess that's kind of the difference right now. So we're just playing catch up in that regard. And to your point, he played fullback more the other night. We ended up using that personnel group a little bit more than we probably anticipated. I thought he did a really nice job that was really his first extensive playing out there, and really pleased with what we saw. It's encouraging.
You guys sit at 6-1. You don't need to sit here and spout off the stats difference between special teams, defense, and offense, but talking to some of the offensive players, talking to the team, taking a look at the season, it really feels like there's a strong sense of leadership in this group that's allowed the locker room to be so united. I mean, you just wouldn't be able to guess, what the stats are. But what can you say about the leadership of this group, especially coming off, the Penn State game? Joe Evans said that he loved the body language in the locker room after the game because he knew that the group was ready to fight back.
Yeah, I mean, we did it last year, and things were probably a little bit more dire. Although, it felt pretty bad 4 weeks ago. I don't mind telling you, there's no way to sugarcoat a game like that. It's not fun to go through, as I said back then, and you try like hell to avoid those moving forward. But, that's what the game's all about. It's responding, and our players are smart. They know what's going on. They know where our challenges are. They know, what things looked like in August, what they look like now. But, despite as much everybody wants to predict the future, you can't do that. You just never know how seasons are going to go, what turns are going to be taken, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. And, if you got a true team, guys just work with the circumstances and situation, and they stay together. And, hey, if this path's not going to work, let's try this one, let's try that one. There's a lot of ways to win football games, and that's kind of been the theme for 20-some years. I mean, we're just trying to find a way to win. That's really what the game's about. And if you can come out victorious on Saturday and do it, over and over, then, you can feel good about things. So that's there's no way to predict how it's going to be. Great if, hey, we'll do this, we'll do that, and, we'll this and that. And I mean, we weren't counting these guys running the ball for 300 last year. I'll promise you that. And, I made for a long day. It was hard. It's really hard when that's going on.
You made a concerted effort to make sure the team does everything together, and obviously the Swarm since 1979. The coach lets the players lead the team onto the field. Can you just remind me, why is that, and why is that so important to do things as a unit?
Yeah, I mean, two of the best traditions you'll see in Kinnick Stadium, in my opinion, or if we go on the road, which we can't take the Wave on the road, but both those are, to me, as good as it gets. And that was Coach Fry's baby all the way. And I thought it just made so much sense. And I know our opponents made fun of us, at least they did in the 70s or 80s. I don't know if they do anymore, but, just what it stood for, what it meant, that was how he built the program here. So, as long as I'm here, that's going to continue, and it is important. We swarmed really poorly in 2004 down in Tempe, Arizona, and it's funny how things work. It's about how we played, too. We couldn't even swarm right and couldn't take a team picture in 1999. Went back and redid that on a Saturday night during camp. I mean, so it's funny, little things sometimes to really carry over to bigger things. But it's just a great tradition. And again, I'm not taking any credit for that, and I'm not taking credit for the Wave at all. We just get to participate in it. It's really.
Minnesota-Iowa is a mid-afternoon game here on the Big Ten Network. We start things off with tailgate at 10 Eastern. Rutgers goes for bowl eligibility against Indiana in Game 1. Second half of our doubleheader, Northwestern and Nebraska. The Big Ten Live postgame bridges the gap before one of the best volleyball matches you will ever see. It's 1 versus 2, Wisconsin and Nebraska. And then we wrap up the entire day coming up on the final drive. And that'll do it for this coach's press conference edition of Big Ten Live. Don't forget, coming up later on Tuesday during our big show, Matt Leinart joins us. His take on Ohio State, Penn State. Jake Butt offers some firsthand thoughts on the Michigan State rivalry. That's all coming up on the big show. But for now, we say goodbye. Rick Pizzo, appreciate you watching.